You can chase wealth your whole life and never feel rich. You can search for happiness and never feel whole. What if it's not the world keeping you from what you want? What if it's you? What if there's a part of you hidden in the shadows of your mind that's been quietly pushing away everything you think you desire? Carl Jung once said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." Today we're going to discover why that terror might be the very thing standing between you and the life you've been chasing. You know the feeling. You get the promotion, but the satisfaction fades within days. You find someone who loves you, but you can't shake the feeling that they don't really see you. You follow every piece of advice, every strategy, every blueprint for success, and still something feels fundamentally wrong. It's 2 a.m. and you're lying awake again, scrolling through Instagram, watching other people live the life you've been working toward. The house, the relationship, the freedom, the joy, and that familiar ache rises in your chest, not envy exactly, but something deeper, something that whispers, "That's not for people like me." It's not that you're lazy. It's not that you're broken. It's not even that you're unlucky. It's that somewhere deep inside, a part of you doesn't believe you deserve what you're chasing. And that part, what Carl Jung called the shadow, has been quietly sabotaging your efforts from the inside. The shadow doesn't announce itself. It works in whispers and impulses and patterns so familiar you mistake them for fate. Here's what's really happening inside you. You have two selves in constant, exhausting conflict. There's your persona, the part of you that shows up to work, that strives and achieves, that wants wealth and happiness and all the good things life has to offer. This is the version of you that reads self-help books, that sets goals, that genuinely believes hard work will pay off. Your persona is optimistic, driven, determined. It's the part of you that downloaded this video. But lurking beneath, there's your shadow. And your shadow carries beliefs you've never consciously chosen. Beliefs like, money corrupts good people. Or, if I become too happy, something terrible will happen. Or, people like me don't get to have everything they want. Think of it like this. You're standing at a door, knocking, desperately begging to be let in. But you're holding the lock from the inside. Your persona knocks. Your shadow holds the lock. Violet thought she wanted financial freedom. She worked 60-hour weeks, invested wisely, built multiple income streams. But every time she got close to her goals, something would happen. An unexpected expense, a bad investment, a business partnership that fell apart. She called it bad luck. Jung would call it something else entirely. Her shadow had learned early that money meant stress. Her father worked himself into a heart attack chasing wealth. Her mother counted pennies and worried about every dollar. Violet's shadow looked at her growing bank account and whispered, "This is dangerous. This is how we lose ourselves. This is how we become someone we hate." So her shadow went to work. A sudden urge to lend money to a friend who never paid it back. An impulsive investment in a startup that felt aligned, but was clearly doomed. A series of generous but financially destructive decisions that kept her safely struggling. Marcus grew up poor but proud. His family took care of each other, shared everything, looked out for the community. Money was something other people had, people who were selfish people who forgot where they came from. When his business started succeeding, when the money started flowing and his shadow activated every alarm it had, suddenly he was making careless decisions, trusting the wrong people, self-sabotaging in ways so subtle he didn't even notice. His persona wanted success. His shadow equated success with becoming someone he'd been taught to resent. This is the Carl Jung shadow at work, not evil, not malicious, but protective. It's trying to keep you safe from becoming someone you unconsciously fear becoming. Your shadow looks at wealthy people and whispers, "They're probably miserable." It looks at genuinely happy people and whispers, "They're probably naive. They don't understand how hard life really is." It's not trying to hurt you. It's trying to protect you from losing yourself, from becoming someone your younger self would hate. But here's the devastating irony. In trying to protect you from becoming someone you fear, it's preventing you from becoming who you truly are. You chase external wealth while your shadow hoards internal poverty. You pursue happiness while your shadow clings to familiar sadness. You reach for love while your shadow whispers that you're not lovable enough to keep it. And so you stay stuck. Not because you don't work hard enough, not because you don't want it enough, but because wanting and receiving are two completely different nervous system responses. The persona can want. Only an integrated self can receive. Your shadow learned to survive in scarcity. It learned that wanting less meant hurting less. It learned that small dreams meant small disappointments. It learned that if you don't reach for the stars, you can't fall from the sky. But now, that same protection has become a prison. The same strategies that kept you safe are keeping you small. The same beliefs that helped you survive are preventing you from thriving. Every time you get close to what you want, your shadow pulls the emergency brake. Not because it doesn't love you, but because it loves you too much to let you become someone dangerous. The question that changes everything: who would you be if you actually received what you've been chasing? Not just got it temporarily, not just achieved it and then lost it, but truly received it integrated. It became someone who could hold wealth and happiness without fear, without guilt, without the constant anxiety that it's all going to disappear. Most people have never seriously considered this question because the answer terrifies them. If you became wealthy, would you still be a good person? If you became genuinely happy, would people still need you? If you got everything you wanted, who would you be? Would your friends still relate to you? Would your family still accept you? Would you still care about the things that matter? This is where the Carl Jung Shadow Work becomes essential. Because you cannot outrun what you believe you don't deserve. You cannot achieve what you cannot identify with. You cannot sustain what you cannot integrate. Jessica inherited $200,000 from her grandmother. Life-changing money. Freedom money. Within 18 months it was gone. Not stolen, not invested poorly. Just gone. A series of generous gifts to friends who suddenly had emergencies. Unnecessary purchases that felt urgent in the moment. Loans that were never repaid to family members who promised they'd pay her back. When I asked her what happened, she said something profound. I felt like I was wearing clothes that didn't fit. Like I was pretending to be someone I'm not. The money didn't disappear because she was irresponsible. It disappeared because receiving it meant becoming someone she didn't recognize. Someone her shadow told her she wasn't allowed to be. Her shadow had learned that people with money were disconnected from real life. That wealth made you out of touch, made you forget where you came from. So when the money arrived, her shadow began a systematic campaign to return her to safety, to poverty, to struggle to being someone her inner child could recognize and respect. This is what Jung meant when he said, "We cannot change anything until we accept it." Condemnation does not liberate, it oppresses. Your shadow isn't your enemy. It's a part of you that learned to survive by being small, by not taking up too much space, by not wanting too much. It learned that safety meant scarcity, that love meant struggle, that goodness meant suffering. And now, when abundance tries to enter your life, your shadow activates every defense mechanism it knows, not because it wants you to suffer, but because it's terrified of what might happen if you stop suffering. What if people only love you because you need them? What if your struggle is the only thing that makes you relatable? What if your pain is the only thing that makes you interesting? Your shadow looks at your wounds and whispers, "This is who we are. This is how people know us. If we heal, if we succeed, if we become happy, will anyone still want us?" This is why positive thinking doesn't work. This is why vision boards and affirmations often fail. You're trying to convince your conscious mind of something your unconscious mind fundamentally rejects. The real work isn't about getting more. It's about becoming someone who can hold more without losing themselves. It's about integrating your shadow, not fighting it, not overcoming it, but understanding it, accepting it, and slowly, gently helping it feel safe enough to let go. Jake built a successful coaching business. 6 figures in revenue, clients he loved, working with a schedule that gave him freedom. Then his shadow went to work. He started undercharging, started over-delivering to the point of burnout, started attracting clients who couldn't pay but really needed help. His conscious mind wanted to scale and grow. His shadow whispered, "Successful coaches are probably fake. They probably don't really care about people. They probably just want money." So his shadow made sure he stayed poor enough to be authentic, struggling enough to be relatable, broke enough to prove he really cared. What if your shadow's resistance to wealth isn't greed, but a deep fear of becoming greedy? What if your shadow's resistance to happiness isn't depression, but a deep fear of becoming selfish? What if your shadow's resistance to success isn't laziness, but a deep fear of becoming someone you were taught to distrust? What if everything you think is holding you back is actually trying to protect something precious inside you? The breakthrough isn't in forcing your shadow to submit. It's in helping your shadow feel safe enough to expand. Your shadow needs to know that you can be wealthy and still generous, happy and still compassionate, successful and still authentic. It needs proof that abundance won't corrupt your soul. Integration doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen through force or willpower or positive thinking. It happens in small moments of self-compassion, small moments of receiving without guilt, small moments of choosing expansion over contraction. It starts with noticing when abundance feels overwhelming, noticing when success feels dangerous, noticing when happiness feels like betrayal, noticing the moment your nervous system says, "This is too much, we need to go back to what we know." Liam started small. Instead of dismissing compliments, he practiced saying thank you and sitting with the discomfort of being seen. Instead of deflecting praise, he let it land in his body. Instead of sabotaging good moments with worry about when they'd end, he practiced staying present with joy, even when it felt foreign. When his business hit its first 5-figure month, his shadow went into complete overdrive. Suddenly, he was convinced the success was fake, that he was fooling people, that any moment he'd be exposed as a fraud who didn't deserve what he was receiving. The familiar voices started, "This won't last. You're not really this good. You got lucky. It's all going to fall apart." Instead of acting on these feelings, instead of sabotaging his success to return to familiar struggle, he sat with them. He asked his shadow, "What are you afraid will happen if I let this be real? What are you protecting me from?" The answer came back immediately. You'll become someone mom and dad can't relate to. You'll become someone who forgot where you came from. You'll become someone who thinks you're better than everyone else. You'll become someone who loses touch with what really matters. Your shadow learned its patterns over years, maybe decades. It learned them for good reasons during times when these protections actually kept you safe. So the undoing happens slowly, gently, with respect for the part of you that learned to protect you by keeping you small. Shadow work isn't about forced positivity. It's not about overriding your fears with affirmations. It's about curious compassion. It's about asking your resistance, what are you trying to protect? What are you afraid will happen if I let this good thing stay? Sometimes your shadow will say, if we become wealthy, people will only want us for our money. We'll never know who really cares about us. Sometimes it will say, if we become too happy, we'll stop caring about other people's pain. We'll become shallow and disconnected. Sometimes it will say, people like us don't get to have everything. That's just not how the world works. We need to stay humble, stay small, stay safe. And instead of arguing with these voices, instead of trying to override them with positive thoughts, you listen. You acknowledge. You say, I understand why you're scared. I see how you've been protecting us all these years. I'm grateful for the ways you've kept us safe. Let's go slowly. Let's prove to both of us that I can have good things and still be a good person. This is the Carl Jung Shadow Integration process. Not warfare against the darkness, but dialogue with it. Not conquering your fears, but understanding them. Not destroying your resistance, but transforming it into wisdom. Amanda inherited her grandmother's ring, a beautiful vintage piece worth several $1,000s. Her first instinct was immediate and clear: sell it and give the money to charity. I don't deserve something this beautiful, she thought. There are people who need this money more than I need this ring. It's selfish to keep something so expensive when others are struggling. But instead of acting immediately on this impulse, she paused. She recognized the familiar pattern. She asked her shadow, why don't I deserve beauty? Why don't I deserve to keep something precious? What am I afraid will happen if I let myself have this? The answer flooded back memories of being told she was too much, of being taught that wanting beautiful things was shallow and materialistic, of learning that good people sacrifice their desires for others, that selflessness was the highest virtue and self-care was selfish. She kept the ring. She wore it. And slowly, carefully, she practiced receiving its beauty without guilt. She practiced being someone who could hold something precious without becoming precious herself. She practiced deserving beauty simply because she existed, not because she had earned it through suffering or sacrifice. You start to notice that wealth doesn't have to corrupt you. You can be wealthy and generous wealthy, and grounded wealthy, and connected to what matters. You start to notice that happiness doesn't have to make you selfish. You can be happy and compassionate, happy and aware of others' pain, happy and still committed to making the world better. You start to notice that receiving doesn't have to make you entitled. You can receive and still give, receive and still care, receive and still remember where you came from. Your shadow begins to relax, begins to trust, begins to believe that maybe, just maybe, you can expand without losing your soul success, without losing your authenticity, abundance without losing your heart. The door you've been knocking on, you finally stop holding the lock. But here's the beautiful part. As your shadow learns to trust your expansion, it doesn't disappear. It transforms. It becomes your inner wisdom, your grounding force, your reminder of what truly matters. It stops protecting you from abundance and starts protecting your integrity within abundance. Coming home to yourself doesn't feel like conquest. It feels like remembering. You remember that you're allowed to take up space. You remember that your worth isn't earned through suffering. You remember that joy isn't a betrayal of your pain, but a celebration of your resilience. The work isn't about becoming someone new. It's about becoming who you always were, beneath the layers of protection, beneath the strategies for survival, beneath the shadow's well-meaning, but outdated fears. When your shadow feels safe, when it trusts that you can handle abundance without losing your humanity, something shifts. You stop pushing away what you want. You stop sabotaging what you've built. You stop running from the very things you've been chasing, and wealth starts to feel safe, not because you need it to feel worthy, but because you're worthy whether you have it or not. Happiness starts to feel safe, not because you need it to feel whole, but because you're whole whether you feel it or not. You become someone who can receive, not just achieve, not just acquire, but truly receive. Let it in, let it stay, let it change you in beautiful ways instead of terrifying ones. Michael finally let himself buy the car he'd been wanting for 3 years. Nothing fancy, just reliable and comfortable. But as he signed the papers, his shadow whispered, "This is how it starts. First, a nice car, then you'll think you're better than everyone else." Instead of returning the car or feeling guilty, he acknowledged the fear. "Thank you for caring about who I become," he told his shadow. "Let's prove together that I can have nice things and still be kind." 3 months later, he was still the same Michael, still generous, still caring, still connected to his values. His shadow began to relax. Maybe abundance wasn't the enemy after all. This is what Jung meant by individuation, not perfection, but integration. Not becoming someone else, but becoming more fully yourself. The shadow that once protected you by keeping you small now protects you by helping you stay grounded as you expand. It reminds you of your values, your compassion, your humanity, not to keep you from growing, but to ensure you grow in ways that honor who you truly are. You realize that the person you were afraid of becoming wealthy but soulless, happy but shallow, successful but disconnected, was never who you were going to become. That was just the fear talking. The real you, the integrated. You can hold abundance and authenticity, success and soul happiness and depth. The gifts start coming, not because you're finally worthy, but because you're finally ready. Ready to receive without guilt. Ready to expand without losing yourself. Ready to let good things stay instead of pushing them away. Wealth and happiness aren't running from you. They've been waiting patiently for you to stop running from yourself. Tonight, before you sleep, ask yourself one question. What belief about abundance or joy have I inherited but never questioned? What story about what I deserve did I learn so young that I forgot it was just a story? Your shadow holds these stories, not to torture you, but to protect you. Thank it for its protection. And then gently help it see that you're strong enough now to hold both safety and abundance, both protection and expansion, both groundedness and joy. As Carl Jung said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. The door was never locked from the outside. When you stop locking it from the inside, you'll discover what you've been seeking has been seeking you all along. What you're ready to receive is ready to be received. If this resonated with your soul, Let me know in the comments what belief you're ready to question. And if you're ready to go deeper into Carl Jung Shadow Work, subscribe for more journeys into the hidden landscapes of the psyche. The shadow work continues, and you're exactly where you need to be.